Great news, everybody. Siege is back online. I was just able to log in, and after 1.5 days of the game being down, everything seems to be back to normal. Siege went down yesterday on the 27th at around 10 a.m., and it is now 8 p.m. on the 28th, and everything seems to have been restored. My credits, my renown, my level are all back to where they were before. My rank is the exact same, Emerald 2. I have access to every operator. I was able to queue for a match and choose whatever operator I wanted. My locker is back to normal with the normal skins here that it should be. I don't have the Glacier or Dev skin anymore. Now, I didn't buy anything with my 2 billion credits, so I don't know if anything got fully refunded, but I assume it did. I assume everyone who bought stuff has now lost it all. And also the Battle Pass was offline, but that is now back, so it looks like everything seems to be working as intended. But Ubisoft has not tweeted anything as of the recording right now. I'm sure by the time this video gets posted on YouTube, they'll probably have posted saying everything's back to normal.
A few moments later.
Now I'm going to throw this in towards the beginning of the video because I'm actually at the end of recording what I wanted to talk about today. But we did get an update from the Rainbow Six Twitter account now saying that they have concluded all of their tests. They are conducting a soft launch, which means that the game is open to a small number of players only. So maybe that's why I got in and then other people are just slowly trickling in. I'm not sure. But they're going to bring out more information soon, which probably means tomorrow. I doubt tonight, since it's 8:30, that they're going to be releasing any more information. I will update you guys as I have more info, but everything should be fine.
A few moments later.
And I know we've been talking nonstop about this for the last 2 days, and it's because it's a huge topic, so I do want to talk more about it. I have a few things I want to say, maybe some bold takes, because as more info is coming out, it seems less and less likely that it could be Ubisoft's fault, and it actually could be someone else's fault. But I don't have a crazy amount of knowledge when it comes to databases, server stuff like that, so I am not going to say that I know for sure what I'm talking about. I'm just going to go based off things that I've been able to quickly research. So first things first, a lot of people have claimed responsibility for this hack, for this takedown. I believe there were 4 different hacker groups that all claimed that they were the ones responsible for what happened. And they all started calling each other liars, saying, no, I hacked into Ubisoft. No, they didn't do it, I did it. No, and then they just kept going back and forth. So we don't know who actually did it. Second, as of the recording of this video, we still don't know what has fully been compromised. We are fairly certain that passwords, emails, information, none of that should have been compromised, but if you are concerned, you can just go to your account information, wherever it is on Ubisoft, and change your password, change your email if you want, remove your credit card if you want, just to be safe. There's really no harm in doing that, but we don't think it's necessary. So as far as we are to understand, all the hackers had access to was the backend server, which means that they were able to push out bans, push out notifications, push out credits, push out skins, all that stuff, because they just had access to basically, to put it as easily as possible, they basically had access to like an order form at a store and were able to say, we want to buy paper towels, we want to buy this, and just submit the order and it would just go through. But it's not like they were able to see who they're buying from, the address of where they're buying from, the credit card is going to be put on, stuff like that. They don't seem to have that information. They could just submit an order. Again, that could all be wrong. Maybe we'll never know the full extent of what they had, because maybe Ubisoft will try to sweep that under the rug, but we don't know. Now, I did some research, and again, I am not a dev, so I don't know fully what half of this means, or really if it means anything for this specific situation, but I've heard the term thrown around a lot. It's something called MongoBleed, which is apparently the reason why this happened. So MongoDB is a company that has some type of database for some type of information for games, servers, whatever, and Ubisoft uses MongoDB. Apparently it's a NoSQL document store. I don't know, man. I'm not a dev. But apparently if it was internet facing, it was vulnerable. And this exploit was found apparently on Christmas Day or Boxing Day, which is the 26th. Some people are claiming that it was found a week prior and that it's Ubisoft's fault if they did not respond to that in time. I also saw this thread on Twitter from Dez, one of the casters, who researched it himself and said that it doesn't seem to be Ubisoft's fault, that this is one of the most popular database companies in the world, and that this MongoBleed thing, anyone is susceptible to this. And so it looks like the hackers might have just found it and quickly gone in as much as they could. But then there's a lot of people in the comments, again, I have zero clue about this, so I don't even know if what they're saying is true. But a lot of people are saying that no, this wouldn't have happened. know that this should have been fixed already because it was found on the 19th apparently, even though I'm seeing posts from only 2 days ago, which means it would have come out on the 26th. I don't know. And then other people are saying there's no evidence at all to suggest this. But then there's also this article that kind of backs up what we're saying. So it says that the MongoDB servers were breached, and it says that this is the error code, I guess that it's called, the CVE 2025-14847, which I assume that means that the error or flaw or whatever was found in 2025, but yet some people are claiming that this would have been patched like 7 years ago. So basically it allows unauthenticated remote attackers to leak memory from the database, which means that they could take stuff from there, and I would assume be able to push through commands to the database. I don't know. It does say it would potentially expose credentials and authentication keys, but if they were able to just pull information, then they wouldn't be able to push out stuff, as far as I'm aware. I don't know how accurate this is, or if it goes deeper than that. I'm not sure. But this article actually does a good job of talking about the 4 different groups that I mentioned earlier. So one group claims that they were just able to exploit the Siege servers and manipulate bans and in-game inventory without accessing any user data at all. The second group claims that they were able to use MongoBleed to get into Ubisoft's Git repositories, which Git is basically a software that companies use to just push out updates for whatever software they want. And then they claim they were able to use this to take a shit ton of internal source code, which would not be good, because source code, if cheaters are able to get that, they can make cheats incredibly efficiently in Siege, which would be horrible. You never want source code leaked. But then a third group also claims to have stolen user data using MongoBleed, and they're trying to extort Ubisoft for money. And the fourth group says that the other groups are wrong, are disputing some of the claims, and are claiming that the second group had access to Ubisoft's source code for a while, which is something I talked about in yesterday's video, where I said people who did this probably had access for a while and were just waiting until the holidays to finally exploit it. But again, if the MongoBleed thing only just came out a week ago or 2 days ago, then they probably didn't have access for that long. This is why it's just like, it's a mess. There's so much information and so many conflicting claims. Obviously, none of these groups should be taken seriously from a user perspective, because they're all going to claim that they did it because they want the notoriety. They want people to think that they did something. But obviously, it's not going to be 4 different groups. We're all doing completely different things and screwing over the company all at once. It's very likely just one of them, and it might not even be one of these. It could be a different group that's just not taking credit for it. I don't know. I'll also throw in, this is something that I wasn't able to verify. I'm trying to look up information, but I don't know what to look for. Apparently, with this whole MongoDB thing and all the issues Siege has been having, apparently Tarkov has been having significant issues as well, because they also use MongoDB, which is why people think it's the MongoBleed thing. But I've been trying to look up anything to do with Tarkov, and no one really seems to be talking about it. So either it's happening, but it doesn't seem to be affecting them as much, because like Tarkov doesn't really have premium currency and stuff, at least since I last played it. But they would be able to manipulate people's levels and their in-game currency, but it wouldn't, I think, have as much of an effect as it would in Siege. Because Siege, that would crash the entire economy and make Ubisoft lose millions of dollars. But if they did this in Tarkov, all it would do is just be annoying, and then a lot of people would have a lot of money in-game and be able to buy whatever they want, which sucks, but that's not going to be the end of the world. So, with all of this, I guess, conspiracy around MongoDB, in my opinion, if it is a MongoDB issue, then this is not Ubisoft's fault. Now, if this comment is true and the MongoDB exploit was found on December 19th, then very much it could be Ubisoft's fault, because they should have patched it by then, unless they were just not made aware. But if you are a dev for Ubisoft's internals for Siege, specifically like the server architecture, and you're not aware of this, that is 100% on them, because they should be up to date on everything happening with MongoDB and any of the software they're using. But again, if it's not Ubisoft's fault, if this was just found over Christmas break and then exploited as fast as possible, then there's nothing Ubisoft could do. They are using a third-party software, which every company uses for everything they do. That is just standard these days. Everyone uses third-party software because they're not going to build everything in-house. That just doesn't make sense. Now, that being said, I wouldn't be opposed to some type of compensation. Obviously, if they want to give us something, sweet. I already got 1 Delta pack for logging in, but that was the daily reward, so it's not going to be anything, or that's not the compensation that we're supposed to be getting at, if we are even getting anything. I do think some people are being a bit crazy. I've seen a lot of people tweeting about how they want like 2,000 credits, they want a glacier, they want all forms of compensation, because they think that this was just completely unacceptable by Ubisoft and should never have happened. And while I agree it sucked, it's not that bad. And I know people are just going to say that I'm trying to defend Ubisoft tooth and nail because like I'm in bed with them or whatever. No, I'm just a realist. Things like this happen, but you can't just expect the world because things aren't going exactly how you want them to. If you go to a grocery store and the Visa system is down, they don't give you compensation for that. They just say, hey, you got to use cash or debit or MasterCard or whatever, because that's just how the world works. If a company can't provide their services because of a third party, they just wait until the problem is resolved or try to fix it themselves, and they just go about their normal day. They don't have to bend over backwards to please you. But gamers are greedy and they want the world, so I'm sure you guys are going to demand a ton of stuff. For me, all that matters is the game works, everything seems to have been restored to how it was before, and nothing seems to be compromised anymore. Now, if this were to go down again because Ubisoft did a half-assed job to fix it, then I would be, more reasonably upset, and we would want some more form of compensation, because then that's on them. They are just, at that point, they'd just be being lazy and not fixing things properly. I also want to just throw in that I understand people are on Christmas break now and they want to play the game as much as possible. Like, this is your time to play Siege, and to have it down, sucks. But you also got to remember that the people who are working on this game and trying to fix it are also people too. Like, they are humans. So while it sucks for you that you're on Christmas break and you can't play Siege, they're also on Christmas break and they now had to leave their families, their trips, their whatever to fix this game for us and get it back online. And again, part of it could have been their fault, but at the end of the day, with how technology is advancing, with how hackers are advancing, whether it's for cheats in game or trying to get data from companies, this is an ever-evolving issue that's just never going to be fully satisfied. Like, these people are dedicated to always trying to find every tiny, minuscule little loophole that they can get and just get as much shit out of it as they can. And also, generally, when it comes to issues like this, some of it can be prevented, some of it can't. Obviously, like I said, if this exploit was found a week ago, Ubisoft should have done a better job of preventing this from happening. But if it was found on the day that the hack happened, what are they going to do? If it's found at like 4 p.m. on the 26th and then the servers get hacked at 10 p.m., how are they possibly going to react that fast? I know people are going to say billion-dollar company, but at the end of the day, you guys also have to realize that it's just not feasible to react instantaneously to issues like this. And then there are also so many people who I feel like were blowing this maybe out of proportion. I understand this is a huge issue. This is a massive breach. But people were saying that this is the first time it has ever happened to any company of any game of any size for anything like this. But it happens a lot. And I feel like people are just forgetting that because of recency bias. Because it just happened to Ubisoft, they think this is the biggest thing that's ever happened and nothing else before it even compares. But issues like this have happened for a long time. Sure, they might be getting fewer and farther between, but they're also getting more severe with each one because, like I said, hacks and ways of stealing data are always evolving. So just to name a few incidents that have happened in the past, going back 14 years ago in 2011, when PlayStation 4 or 3, must have been 4, I think, came out, and PSN was just, obviously getting a lot of people with Christmas. A group of hackers shut down PlayStation Network for 24 days. It was down for 3 weeks. And I think people threw less of a fit over that than they did for this Siege server being down for a day and a half. And it sucked because back then there was no way to play online games on PlayStation without the PlayStation Network. So a lot of people just had kind of useless consoles because they had only multiplayer games. And even then people were still, it was a terrible situation. People complained, but I feel like people demanded less compensation when that happened than when this happened. And then to use a more recent example for a huge security breach was recently, I think it was 2 years ago. I'll pull up some information, probably throw it on the screen when I find it while editing. But there was an Apex Legends tournament where hackers were able to just inject cheats into pros' computers. So in the middle of the tournament, while teams were playing, pros were randomly getting wall hacks and aimbot. They would just be in the middle of a gunfight, and then all of a sudden their aim would lock onto a player's head, and they could see people through walls because they were being fed cheats, basically. And that compromised a multi-million-dollar tournament for some security flaw. And people will say, well, that's only esports. It doesn't affect the general population. But any security breach like that affects the general population. Because any security breach that could happen on a tournament could happen online. Easily. And I would say that one was significantly worse than what happened here because, again, all that happened here with Siege is that they gave us credits. They banned people, unbanned them, which I know is severe, but it wasn't, I don't think, as bad as what happened with the Apex tournament. And then to use a more, I guess, in-line example, GTA 5 had an issue where there was a big exploit where people could get other players' accounts banned for no reason. There was some type of like server data breach where they were basically able to, I think, just tell the game, ban this player, or just send information and be like, this person's cheating, you should ban them, and then the server would ban them. So for a while, I remember, because I think, looking at playing GTA RP for a little bit, and everything I saw online said, do not play it right now because you will just get banned. People will just ban you for no reason. And that was a huge security flaw. People obviously were up in arms about it. They fixed it. Everyone moved on. But it's the same thing as what's happening here, but here people are just saying that Ubisoft should burn to the ground. They are the worst company ever. And again, I'm not trying to just glaze them or say they did nothing wrong. Obviously, mistakes were made and things should be fixed in the future, but worse things have happened, similar things have happened, and people are treating it like this is the worst thing in the world. Also, it is important to note that the people who exploited this did it with very malicious intent in the sense that they specifically waited for Christmas break. Everyone in the world knows that Ubisoft goes on Christmas break. They have always said this. They say, I think it's like December 23rd to like January 5th or something, somewhere around there. The offices are closed, the devs are gone, and every single year something happens in Siege because they know devs are gone. It's never been to this scale, but I think last year all the cheats came back online on December 25th. Like, they just waited for all the devs to be gone, released all the new cheats. Servers were flooded with cheaters for all of Christmas break. And then in previous years, there have been other exploits, other security breaches that they've been able to pull off because, again, when it is Christmas, there are less employees. And I understand you guys are probably sitting there thinking, well, they should just have people working over Christmas break. And I get that. I agree to an extent. You can't just abandon ship because it's the holidays. They should definitely have more people on, but it's also a holiday. Give people a break. Again, at the end of the day, these devs are people. They're people like us. They deserve a break. And I'll throw this in here too because we were talking about it on stream a lot today while the servers were still down, and I had some people throwing out some crazy comments saying, who cares if the devs have to come back on holiday? They earn so much money, they should come back whenever we want them to. Guys, a lot of the devs are not paid that handsomely. I think people are very much overestimating how much money devs make on this game. Ubisoft is very infamous for underpaying developers, and I think the whole game industry as a whole underpays developers. That's why if you are a really, really good software engineer, coder, whatever, usually you go work at the tech companies like Google, Amazon, whatever. But a lot of these people, they just love video games and they want to make good games, so they go where there's less money, but they enjoy the job a lot more. So a lot of these people aren't making, crazy money, and they're being forced to come in on their holidays to fix an issue because the people obviously intended for it to be at a time when there were less devs on hand. Now, does anything that I say excuse Ubisoft or absolve them of anything? No. Again, it might have been their fault, it might not have been. I'm sure we'll get a lot more information by the time this video comes out. Maybe I'll comment below the video in case big news comes out, but at the end of the day, I don't think anything's going to actually happen. I think Ubisoft, we talked about this on stream, they're legally required to tell us if user data was stolen within 72 hours of it happening. And tomorrow will be about 72 hours. So if they know data has been stolen, they'll have to tell us, and then everyone will probably have to change their passwords and, worry about accounts being compromised. But again, until we hear anything, we just assume that everything is business as usual. Again, the game is working. You are able to go queue and play games if you want. I will say it's commendable how many of you guys were angry about this, only in the sense that I didn't realize people were still that passionate about Siege. It's good to see that passion, just maybe blame the people who broke the game and not the people who are trying to fix it. You can still hold them responsible, but as long as the game is fixed and you're able to queue, it's really not that deep. Just enjoy the game, enjoy your Christmas break where you're able to play this game, and have a good time. Don't just lament and be pissed off over the fact that it was down for a day and a half. And also, it was a day and a half. Do you guys have nothing else to do? I don't want to be mean, but come on, guys. You gotta have some life outside of Siege, outside of video games. It was down for a day and a half, and I didn't miss it at all. I just played other games that I've been meaning to play, and I went to my friend's house for Christmas. I don't know, it wasn't that big of a deal. If it was down for a week, I'd be right there with you guys. But a day and a half, I can live without Siege for a day and a half. If you guys can't, you might want to get that checked out because that is pretty severe. But that's all I want to talk to you guys about today. I know tensions are high, tempers are high, but guys, at the end of the day, it's just a game. Enjoy it, have fun. Just be happy the game's working again. And you guys can call me a UB Glazer or whatever if you want, but at the end of the day, remember, it might not be their fault. We don't know all the information. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll go back to our regularly scheduled Siege content, assuming there's no more issues. Tomorrow should be a normal gameplay video about Thatcher and how you can counter C4s. So you don't have to watch any more long videos of me ranting and talking to you guys nonstop. It'll be normal Siege content again. But thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.